The billionaire dojo was silent. A dozen black belts stood in a perfect circle, their eyes fixed on the center mat where two men faced each other, one in a crisp white GI, the other in a faded one with frayed sleeves and a patch that had seen too many years of sweat and struggle. The billionaire, Kenshiro Takeda, an 8th Dan Aikido master and CEO of one of the world's biggest tech empires, had just smirked. Across from him, the single dad Ethan Cole, a quiet maintenance worker with tired eyes, only smiled and said softly, "Only if you promise not to cry." Everyone in the dojo froze. Because behind that smile wasn't arrogance. It was pain. History. Loss. And something else, something Kenshiro hadn't felt in years, humility. By the end of that spar, both men's lives would change forever. And the billionaire would learn that not all strength can be bought, some is earned through heartbreak, sacrifice, and love. The Tokyo sunrise hit the glass walls of Takeda Tower like molten gold. Every morning, Ethan Cole wiped those same windows from the 87th floor, watching a city that never slept. He was invisible, just another face behind the cleaning cart. No one knew he had once been a soldier. No one knew he had once trained in Aikido under a master who'd taught him that the greatest battle wasn't against others, but against oneself. But that was years ago, before the accident, before his wife passed, before he was left to raise his 8-year-old son, Noah, alone. Now he worked double shifts, saving every yen for Noah's special school. His body ached, his hands cracked from cold water and chemical soap, but he never complained. Because when he looked at his son sleeping peacefully, he remembered what his wife had whispered before she passed. "Don't let him grow up seeing you broken. Show him what strength really is." That morning, Ethan's routine was interrupted when the elevator opened and Kenshiro Takeda himself stepped out barefoot, in a crisp GI, heading to his private dojo on the top floor. Takeda was a legend, a martial artist turned billionaire who'd built an empire teaching Aikido philosophy to corporations. His words filled bestsellers, his seminars sold out. To the world, he was the symbol of balance and discipline. But behind closed doors, arrogance had replaced humility. Success had made him forget the very art he claimed to master. As Takeda passed, Ethan bowed slightly, an old reflex from his training days. Takeda noticed. "You know Aikido?" he asked, intrigued. "A little," Ethan replied quietly. "A long time ago." Takeda chuckled. "A long time ago doesn't mean much on the mat. Come by the dojo sometime. Let's see what you remember." Ethan smiled faintly. "Sir, I'm just a janitor." "Titles don't matter," Takeda said. "Only skill does." That night, Ethan told Noah about it. The boy's eyes lit up. "Dad, you used to fight? Like in movies?" Ethan laughed. "Not fight. Aikido isn't about fighting, it's about peace." Noah nodded solemnly, "Then show them what peace looks like." The next morning, Ethan stood at the dojo entrance. Barefoot. Nervous. Takeda's students looked him up and down with smirks, a janitor among masters. "Be gentle," one whispered. "Don't worry," another laughed, "he'll be on the floor before he knows it." Takeda entered the mat and called out, "Ethan, ready?" Ethan exhaled, took his stance, and replied calmly, "Only if you promise not to cry." The laughter stopped. The room went silent. And when they bowed, the world shifted. Takeda moved first, lightning fast, controlled, confident. He aimed for a wrist grab, testing Ethan's balance. But Ethan didn't resist. He flowed. Turned. Redirected. The billionaire stumbled. A murmur swept through the dojo. Takeda adjusted his stance. This time, faster. A sweeping strike, a pivot, a lock, but Ethan slipped through like water, his movements soft, almost tender, yet unstoppable. Every technique Takeda used came back at him with a mirror's grace, not aggression, just understanding. "You've forgotten," Ethan whispered mid-movement, "Aikido isn't about domination." Takeda gritted his teeth. "It's about control." "No," Ethan said, catching his arm and releasing it gently, "it's about harmony." Minutes turned into eternity. The billionaire's pride crumbled as his breath grew heavy. Finally, Takeda fell not from force, but from exhaustion and realization. Ethan stepped back, bowed deeply, and helped him to his feet. The dojo was silent, except for Takeda's trembling breath. For the first time in years, the billionaire felt small, not humiliated, but humbled. He looked into Ethan's eyes and saw the truth: pain, love, discipline, and the quiet strength of a man who had nothing left to prove. "Who trained you?" Takeda asked softly. "Life," Ethan answered. "And loss." After the match, Takeda invited Ethan to sit. Over tea, the billionaire listened as Ethan shared his story: the accident, his wife, his son, the long nights cleaning offices he could never afford to enter. Something in Takeda's chest cracked open. For all his billions, he had never known that kind of courage. The next week, Ethan was no longer cleaning floors, he was teaching Aikido to Takeda's employees, leading a new program called Strength Through Stillness. His first student? Noah, standing proudly beside Takeda himself. Months later, at a public seminar, Takeda introduced Ethan to a hall of executives. He gestured to him and said, "This man reminded me that true mastery isn't found in power, but in patience. Not in status, but in spirit." Ethan simply bowed. No spotlight. No fame. Just peace. And when the applause faded, he looked up and whispered, "I kept my promise, love." He didn't cry.